And this will be a three-part series. So today is session one. We'll continue to put the bit.ly link in the chat, and it'll be shared again at the end during our presentation. So today we have myself, Kim Shank. I'm an MTSS literacy consultant at the IU. Michelle Trossel, one of our new consultants, will also be presenting later today with me. Say hi, Michelle. And then we also have Dr. Sarah Lobaugh and soon to be Dr. Amy Healy joining us. She is defending her dissertation next week. So good luck to Amy. All right, so just like in previous sessions, we will be following this format. We will review a common practice, explain the problem, explore the research, and then explore a better practice. So the focus for today's session is going to be sentence level instruction. Sentences are the basic building blocks of writing, and just like reading instruction, our writing instruction needs to be systematic, explicit, sequential, and cumulative with plenty of opportunities to practice. So what does typical writing instruction look like? Well, unfortunately, many students are assigned writing without explicit instruction. Elementary teachers may be using Writer's Workshop, where there's a focus on quantity rather than quality. Students may be writing about ideas unrelated to what they're learning about in the content areas or what they're reading about. And additionally, teachers dive right into abstract parts of speech instruction before students understand the job of each part of the sentence. As students get older, writing instruction typically falls on the shoulders of the ELA teacher, and it's often taught in isolation outside the context of a student's actual writing. So let's take a look at the state of our current writing instruction. And if you feel uncomfortable about the idea of teaching writing skills, you are not alone. Research has shown that few teachers were ever taught how to actually teach writing to their students in their teacher prep program. And teachers also often assign writing without explicitly teaching it in a careful sequence of logical steps, starting at that sentence level. Furthermore, many teachers use different instructional approaches or materials, which may cause confusion and inconsistencies for students. And finally, many content area teachers in older grades don't feel comfortable teaching writing, nor do they think it's their responsibility. Furthermore, the data regarding writing proficiency is quite bleak. Employers find that less than half of college graduates are proficient writers. Additionally, 41% of students who took the ACT did not score well enough to meet the readiness benchmarks for a college level English composition class. And finally, only 27% of students in grades 8 to 12 were proficient in writing as of the 2011 NAEP test, which was the last time writing was assessed. So that also tells you what our country is valuing and what we're not valuing. So let's look at the research. Why is writing so challenging for students? Think of writing like the ultimate mental juggling act. So within our brain, we have long-term, short-term, and working memory. Ultimately, we want to store learned information into the long-term memory where information is organized and stored for long-term retrieval. We also have short-term memory where limited information is held for a brief amount of time. And finally, we have our working memory. And our working memory manipulates just a limited amount of information and then facilitates the management of multiple features or details. Our working memory can become overloaded if it reaches capacity. So for example, in early elementary school, we want students to master basic handwriting skills like spelling and capitalization and punctuation and usage in order to become accurate and automatic in their writing abilities. So by mastering these basic skills, they free up their working memory in order to make space for the higher level skills that are needed to consider meaning, purpose for writing, the audience, syntax, sentence structure, and semantics. And just like with reading skills, if students have not mastered these foundational skills, their working memory will be overloaded and they will be unable to attend to all of the skills needed that go into a writing piece. Research also tells us that frequent spaced interleaved retrieval practice builds that automaticity and frees working memory. However, if anything, our students actually seem to be writing less and less, especially now that technology is being utilized so heavily into classrooms. So, what does the research say regarding sentence level instruction? Well, teaching sentence construction skills has improved reading fluency and comprehension. So, it's supporting our reading skills. And the What Works Clearinghouse has also recommended that students be taught to construct sentences, specifically mentioning sentence expansion, which is one of the strategies we'll be talking about today. Research has also consistently found that teaching grammar in isolation does not work. So, what does work is to teach writing conventions and grammar in the context of students' own writing. So, throughout today's session, we are going to be referencing an evidence based instructional methodology known as the Hockman Method. So, if you are familiar with the book, The Writing Revolution, this instructional method is explained throughout the book. The methodology rests on explicit, carefully sequenced instruction, building from sentences to compositions. This method is not a separate writing curriculum, but it's rather an instructional approach that has been designed to be adapted to and embedded in any content being taught in any subject area and at any grade level. So, what can we do? I'm going to hand it over to Michelle.
Thank you so much, Kim, for so clearly laying out the issues that we have with writing instruction. So according to Hockman and Wexler, the importance of spending plenty of instructional time working with sentences cannot be stressed enough. There are so many benefits beyond understanding of written language structures. This instruction can alleviate cognitive load that we discussed earlier. It can also build content knowledge and vocabulary and improve reading comprehension. It's also a more effective way of helping students learn basic grammar and conventions. Sentence level instruction also serves as a great formative assessment and check for understanding of learned content and lays that groundwork for revising and editing. So what can we do instead? Well, it's recommended that students first understand what makes a sentence a sentence. This can be done with fragment and sentence explicit instruction and practice. Before introducing this in writing, you can introduce this to students orally. You can use felt squares to represent different parts of the sentence, such as the who or what, and then the action, the doing, thinking, feeling, or being. You can embed sentence instruction right into the content being taught. If you're making up fragments, make sure you anticipate correct responses and ensure that students have enough knowledge on the topic to be able to complete that sentence. The goal is to have students draw upon learned content to complete the sentence by adding missing elements of the sentence. And then, of course, also include correct capitalization and punctuation. One tip is to just start with subjects and predicates. Hold off on those prepositional phrases and dependent clauses until students have a grasp on basic sentence structure. You can embed sentence level instruction in small or whole group instruction. For example, the group here on the left is building a sentence with their teacher based on the content they learned in class. The teacher offers reinforcement and prompting as students continue to read aloud their sentence and consider where commas in a series should be placed. You can also use sentence strips and record subjects and predicates on each sentence strip and have students move about the room to find their partner to make a complete thought. Purposeful movement is always a great thing. And that also helps to reinforce the learned content knowledge. Sentence builder charts are also great for sentence level instruction. Start small with two parts, subject and predicate, and then move on to more expanded sentences. You can model this with sentences reinforcing learned content knowledge, and then have students complete fragments using what they know about the content. Notice how this chart is also reinforcing the job of each part of the sentence. As students master the parts of a sentence and the role words play in a sentence, you can then start introducing the parts of speech terminology. A study by Thiem and Famine in 2005 concluded that teaching students to focus on the function and practical application of grammar within the context of writing versus teaching grammar as an independent activity produced strong and positive effects on student writing. So now this slide shows you the Hockman method being used in science and math classes. Note how any content area can support sentence level instruction. The picture on the left is asking students to recall learned information on the periodic table in order to write complete sentences. Students first identify if it is a fragment or sentence, and then they rewrite the complete sentence using correct capitalization and punctuation. For math, students are writing out equations and inequalities in complete sentences using examples noted at the top of the worksheet. Notice how this is not only reinforcing sentence structure, but the expectations for writing are the same across content areas and teachers, and content knowledge is being reinforced to support student learning. Another strategy that can support students' knowledge of sentence structure is unscrambling scrambled sentences. This strategy helps students learn word order in a sentence. It makes a great opening or closing activity at the start or end of a lesson to review essential learned content and reinforce vocabulary. Essentially, the teacher provides students with a scrambled sentence that relates back to a key idea from a text or a lesson. The teacher scrambles the word order of the sentence. It's helpful to do this by cutting the words apart as manipulatives, or the scrambled sentence words could be written at the top of a paper in random order so that students can cross them off as they use them. Additionally, it's helpful to note the number of words in the scrambled sentence so that students can cross-check their work once they complete the sentence. When completing this activity with students, you want to avoid using commands. You, as a subject, can be really confusing to students when they're just learning about sentence structure. If students need scaffolds and supports, try capitalizing the first letter of the first word and adding ending punctuation to the last word. That way, students at least have bookends for their sentence. On the right, you can see different examples that were used in different content areas. One last strategy to build an understanding of sentence structure is to expand kernel sentences. Think about a popcorn kernel before and after it is popped. A pre-popped kernel is small and simple, whereas a popped kernel has expanded and is more complex. There's a video that you can check out later where you can see a first grade teacher conduct a whole group lesson using this strategy. Hockman and Wexler describe numerous benefits and positive effects of using this strategy with students. This strategy gives students the opportunity to identify parts of speech within the context of their writing. It also helps students anticipate what information a reader needs to know in order to provide that information. This strategy is a great comprehension check and also teaches note-taking strategies. It provides additional practice with crafting written language structures and helps to develop the ability to summarize. Finally, it is often used in revision and feedback and helps set students up for that process after their writing developed. Here's an example using social studies content from a lesson on the Boston Tea Party. The teacher writes a short, simple declarative kernel sentence around 2 to 5 words in length. The teacher decides which of the words to include, maybe the who, what, when, where, why, and how, or how. Teachers can provide some of the information as a scaffold if needed and allow students to complete the rest. Make sure as you're coming up with these examples, you're anticipating sample student responses. As the students are recording their notes, it is okay if they're abbreviating and using a note-taking format. Once they have their notes recorded, they should use those notes to form a complete sentence with correct capitalization and punctuation. They should be encouraged to start with the when and consider the structure for the rest of the sentence. They may need to add additional words and phrases to ensure all of the ideas connect together. Here are two examples of this strategy used in science and math. Note how the science example is reinforcing learned content from an experiment. Students will need to write lab reports and describe observations within the science discipline. This is a great way to set them up for success. On the right, you can see the teacher recorded two teams' answers and had the students evaluate the students' work and explain in a complete sentence where a specific team made an error. Students are asked to explain their work and justify their mathematical reasoning. This is also a great strategy to set them up for success. If students need support, try including a poster in your room and or maybe in a student writing notebook that offers examples of words that tell when, where, why, and how. Additionally, start students off with lots of practice identifying the who, where, what, when, or why in a sentence. Note how all of these example sentences relate back to content, text, or a theme that the students are learning about. Here is a revolutionized example of a written response after reading a text. After reading the 3 branches of state government, students are given a kernel sentence they need to expand. For example, they run the executive branch. The teacher is asking students to expand upon who, how, and what. Students take their notes and then turn that information into a sentence. Can you see how this is also getting students ready to summarize and find those main ideas in a text? And now we went over some practical ideas. Kim's going to come back and tell us about some more resources that we have for you.
Yes, absolutely. And that was a great setup because our last session in this series will actually be summarizing. All right, so we do have some resources to use right now. This first link is a website that reinforces different concepts around syntax that we've discussed today, as well as some teacher tips. There is also a sample template from the Writing Revolution website on the Fragment ID practice. I also want to preface with the Writing Revolution website has lots of resources, some of which are free, some of which are not. I personally took a training class through them, and that provided me with access to different digital templates that I could save into my personal library. But that's only if you take the paid class. So if you'd like to know more about that, you can shoot me an email and I'd be happy to discuss that with you. The next resource is Sentence Expansion Practice. This is another template from the Writing Revolution website. So these aren't able to be typed in, but you could easily make your own digital copy and save it in your drive. And then there is a sentence expansion sample lesson plan. There are examples from elementary and middle school to kind of give you some ideas. And then this is available for free on their website. There is the Writing Revolution diagnostic and diagnostic rubric. I really liked this because it allows you to use this tool to determine different instructional needs. And the rubric can help you organize your diagnostic information to target small and whole group instruction. And then I also linked the Writing Revolution website. There are a variety of courses from different grade levels. And not only is it going over some of the information, but then they also have an application course where you can actually start revolutionizing, some of your materials to build your bank of resources. So on the next slide, I've linked a number of resources. I've also included a lot of the books that I think are really helpful on that bookshelf. I believe they're also linked. Obviously, the main one we talked about today was the Writing Revolution book, but the reading comprehension blueprint from Nancy Hennessy reinforces a lot of these same concepts, as well as the writing rope by Joan Sedita. And then Stephen Graham, Best Practices in Writing Instruction. He's just fantastic. Anything written by him is great, as well as William Van Cleve, Writing Matters is also great. A great resource too for your struggling writers. And then if you haven't taken the New Letters third edition, their volume 2 also reinforces and reiterates a lot of the concepts that we've talked today. And Make It Stick is just a great book to help you support practice opportunities and build that within your instructional practices. So as far as the links, from words to works, developing writing skills in students of all ages, this is a great linked resource from William Van Cleve. Page 21 in particular goes into different activities that are designed to improve writing at the sentence level. If you love podcasts like I do, there's a Knowledge Matters podcast, episode 4. This reiterates a lot of what we spoke about today and reiterates that writing and reading should be connected and writing should be embedded within instruction, and students should be writing about content, not random stories, about their day. We also have a writing resource Padlet. This information is organized by text. Within there, I also included a book study on the writing rope that was done by Patton and their Wakelet that has a lot of other writing resources. And then there also is a Keys to Literacy blog written by Joan Sedita on syntactic awareness. And finally, this is really good, especially too at the secondary level, a syntax surgery website. This strategy really helps students make meaning from lengthier, complex sentences and helps them connect words and phrases as they read and then use their syntactic knowledge to make sense of that complex phrasing and different structures. So that was a lot of information, but we are so excited to finally be talking about writing. We are excited to bring another session that will build upon today's session. And that next one is going to be on sentence combining. That will be April 12th. And we'll continue focusing on instructional strategies at the sentence level. And we always say, do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, you can do better. So there is the link there for you. We will stay on if you have any questions or if you'd like to know more about that Writing Revolution course I referenced. And we hope you have an outstanding weekend. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Kim, I have a question.
Sure.
During